Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Akakwadash. Next double honor, star pastors, elders, bishops of Great Millstone that rule well. All right, salutation to the hopeful elect in the four corners of this earth, pushing his truth in sincerity and in meekness. All right, this is the brother Iwab from GMS Guyana coming to you with another edifying lesson. All right, which is based from 2nd Ezra 6. All right, and a couple of verses. All right, and it's a short lesson, but hopefully it's edifying. All right, and basically it was a conversation between Ezra's, all right, who's a prophet of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and an angel by the name Uriel. All right, and Ezra's was asking Uriel, all right, basically Salakia. All right, Ezra was asking Uriel basically about what's gonna happen in the end of time. All right, and Uriel was showing him, all right, through the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, what the end of time is gonna be. All right, and that's right now, because this is the last generation. All right, and right now with all these signs and prophecies that are being fulfilled, all right, we know we're at the end of times. All right, and this is from since the time of Ezra's inquiring of it. All right, so without further ado, all right, let me get into a few precepts. All right, it says 2nd Ezra 6 and verse 12. It says, I beseech thee, show thy servant the end of thy tokens, whereof thou shewest me part the last night. All right, and basically Ezra was asking him to show what's gonna happen, all right, in these times, all right, and at the end right now. All right, because the angel showed him a few things before. All right, and now he's asking to get a clear understanding about now. All right, in these times now. All right, and verse 13 it says, so he answered and said unto me, stand up upon thy feet and hear a mighty sounding voice. All right, so basically the angel tell him to stand up and hear the mighty sounding voice. All right, and it shall be as if it were a great motion, but the place where thou standest shall not be moved. All right, so the voice have to be of a supreme being. All right, of a mighty power. All right, the voice have to be of a mighty power. All right, and the scriptures even said that the earth quake at the voice of the Lord. All right, so it says verse 15, and therefore when it speaketh, be not afraid, for the word is of the end, and the foundation of the earth is understood. And why? Because the speech of these things trembleth and is moved, for it knoweth that the end of these things must be changed. All right, verse 17, and it happened that when I had heard it, I stood up upon my feet and hearkened, and behold, there was a voice that spake And the sound of it was like the sound of many waters. All right, and this was the voice of who? Yahushai. All right, because scripture tell us in the book of Revelation. All right, let me get it real quick. Revelation. All right, I'm gonna start from chapter 1 and read from 1. It says the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach, which power gave unto him. All right, so give unto who? John the Revelator, who wrote the book of Revelation. All right, and it says the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach. Revelation means to reveal. All right, jumping down to verse 13. All right, and this is the revelation or the revealing of Yahushua. It says, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girded about the paps with a golden girdle. And his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were born in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. All right, so Yahushua's voice, all right, is like the sound of many waters. And you could know the sound of many waters when you go out in the ocean. You would hear the noise that the water make. All right, and you picture many water coming and hitting at once, hitting together at once. It would give a terrifying voice. All right, or a terrifying sound. All right. So going back to 2nd Ezra's, all right, chapter 6 and verse 17, reading back 17, it says, and it happened that when I had heard it, I stood upon my feet and hearkened, and behold, there was a voice that spake, and the sound of it was like the sound of many waters. And it said, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh, and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. All right, and this is talking about these times that we're in right now. All right, Yahushua is preparing to what? To make his entrance. All right, to visit the earth. All right, to bring judgment upon these heathens. All right, and even 2/3 of our people. All right, it says, and will begin to make inquisition of them, what they be that have heard unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I shew these tokens. All right. So we're at the time, all right, where this rulership, all right, is beginning to vanish away, because right now the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. All right, and we are at the end of it. We are at the end of the rulership of the wicked. All right, we are at the end of the rulership of the wicked. All right, and then righteousness shall rule after. All right, which is Israel. Israel is going to rule after these Edomites. All right, and it says, the books shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. And the children of a year old shall speak with their voices. The women with child shall bring forth untimely children of 3 or 4 months old, and they shall live and be raised up. All right, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. All right, so there's gonna come a time that famine is gonna hit. All right, because places that the supermarkets that you find goods and so on, all right, things to eat, all right, will run out of food. All right, because we're heading into a time of famine also. All right, the scripture tells us in when you read in a little more down in Second Ezra's chapter 15. All right, which we can get soon. It says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. All right, because right now, all right, you're getting food shortages already because what the earth is refusing to yield her fruit. All right, so we're already experiencing food shortages. All right, around the world. All right, that's why you find people will be using a lot of fertilizers. Then they have these GMO foods, being introduced because what the earth is not yielding, the earth is not giving forth or fruit. All right, it says, um, and the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man hear it, they shall be suddenly afraid. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The spring of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. All right. So it says, friends shall fight against one another like enemies, because for food shortage, all right, and for the famine, all right, men gonna invade one another, all right, because why? Of the lack of bread, all right, which it says there in the book of the same Second Ezra 15, and I'm gonna start from verse 14. All right, it says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, all right, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and sword in their hands. All right, let's go back to war, race war, civil war, and so on. All right, men gonna fight against one another. All right, it says for verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. The course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right. So men gonna invade one another because why? They don't have food. All right. They don't have food to eat. So they're gonna invade one another to find food, in search of food to survive. All right. Right now you're not seeing it. All right. But these things is gonna happen. All right. And when these things do happen, they that don't take heed to the word, all right, it's gonna be in full in full surprise, because why? They're not taking heed to the word. All right, that's gonna catch them to a full surprise. All right, because they wasn't prepared, all right, for these things. All right, and then men gonna invade one another because of food, having no food to eat. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, because why? They're gonna be, people in the street, with modern day sword, all right, which modern day sword today is the gun, all right, and you would see people in the street with a modern day sword, all right, and they're what? They're patrolling up and down, all right, and you're gonna be afraid to go even into a next city, or into a next village, or into a next town, all right, because why? You're studying that you could lose your life, all right. It says, verse 18, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid, all right, because our people, all right, is proud right now. All right, the scripture said the beginning of pride is when one draweth away from the Most High. All right. So our people, they drive away from the Most High. All right. They don't regard the Most High as their power. All right. So they drive away from the Most High. So because of their pride, all right, the city shall be troubled. All right. The houses shall be destroyed. All right. 2/3 of our people, houses, and these other nations, the houses gonna be what destroyed because why? Men gonna invade them. All right. It says, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. All right. There's like a friend. All right. You're friends right now, but when the time come, all right, men not gonna show no regard of the friend because why? Of the lack of bread. All right. And in order to survive, all right, they're gonna what? They're gonna your own friend gonna come and what? Destroy you. Come to try to take your life, to delete you. All right. Because of what? The lack of bread. All right. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, you see, and for great tribulation. All right. Because having nothing to eat, all right, a man trying to feed his family, all right, and he know that you have a lot in your house, all right, he's gonna try to what? To get in and to what? Destroy you for your bread, to spoil you, all right, for in order for his family to eat, all right. So even your friend that you have now, or your neighbor, all right, who you have close to you, is gonna want to try to delete you in order for survive, all right. So that's what the scripture is talking about, and these things is gonna happen, all right. We're heading into the times, all right, where these things gonna happen, all right, which is not far long, all right, because this is the last generation, and these things have to be fulfilled, all right. These are prophecies have to be fulfilled, all right. Jumping back to the second Ezra 6, all right, and verse second Ezra 6 and verse, let me get it. Yeah, verse 24. It says, at that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies. All right, and that gonna happen because of the lack of bread. All right, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The spring of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. Whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation and the end of your world. All right. So who's gonna remain? All right. The elect. The elect is gonna be remaining to what? To see this salvation. To see this this dreadful thing. All right. That come upon the earth. That come upon this kingdom. All right. Esau's kingdom. All right. It says, and the men that are received shall see it. All right, which is the men who shall be received are the elect. It says, who have not tasted death from their birth, and the heart of the inhabitants shall be changed and turned into another meaning. All right, for evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. All right, so it meaning that a man wouldn't, this sinful flesh, all right, is going to be put away, and we shall inherit, the elect shall inherit a body of incorruptible body, all right, not a body of corruption, but a body of incorruption, All right. So that means, you know, you're gonna be start dwelling in righteousness. All right. Your heart would go back to your mind. You wouldn't get a mind of wickedness, but a mind of righteousness. All right. Which the scripture tell us in the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah chapter 31. All right. Jeremiah 31 and verse 33. It says, "But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts," meaning the mind, "and will be their power, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahweh. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more." All right. So that clearly shows that we're gonna have what? A righteous mind. All right. A body that that is not immune to sin. All right. A body that is not immune to sin. All right. A body that cannot sin, because the law is going to be written in our mind. All right. We're going to know these things from what? From your head. All right. So we wouldn't have to teach. We don't have to teach our brother, because why? Our brother is going to be righteous also, not like what we're doing now. Edifying our brothers. In that time, it wouldn't be so. All right. So it says, verse 26, "And the men that are received shall see it, who have not tasted death from their birth, and the hearts of the inhabitants shall be changed and turned into another meaning." Meaning that your mind can change, meaning you're gonna get a righteous body, or a righteous mind. All right, a righteous spirit. All right, we're not gonna be unrighteous anymore. We're gonna be righteous. All right. It says, verse 27. It says, "For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched." All right. So see, clearly it shows evil shall be put out. All right. So we wouldn't be unrighteous. We would be righteous in those times when you get the change. All right. When you change from corruptible to incorruptible. All right. When you change from mortal to immortality. All right. So that brings us to the end of the lesson. Lord's will, hopefully this lesson was edifying. All right, until next time, we say shalom. Abad babal to this wicked kingdom.